Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I'm Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Tony Gold. This is our post-match show of Fulham's 3-2 victory against Burnley on Saturday. I actually just did a post-match reaction, basically 5 takeaways from that victory. It's actually exclusive on the Cottage Talk Patreon page. We're live on YouTube, on X, and also on Facebook. But if you are not subscribed yet to YouTube, please do subscribe on YouTube. It'll help people find us. So please do subscribe. You also get alerts when we go live. That's always helpful. And if you want more content of Cottage Talk, please do subscribe on the Cottage Talk Patreon page. It's reasonably priced. It actually, if you just go to patreon.com/Cottage Talk, you can very quickly become a member. We'd love to have you join us. Okay. Mr. Gold, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm very well, Russ. How are you getting on?
I am doing good. I'm in a good mood, even though my New England Patriots lost last night. So we won't talk about them. But we're going to focus on Fulham, a huge victory against Scott Parker and Burnley. So I actually watched it away. I was actually in Oklahoma visiting my daughter who was performing in a Christmas Carol. It's funny because look at Tony right now wearing what he's wearing, and he's getting into the spirit. But I actually was in Oklahoma, but I got to watch it in my hotel room. Thankfully, no one was around me watching it, which is great. So because I could really just get into it. But just give me your opening thoughts on what you watched on Saturday.
Yeah, obviously, look, I want to focus on the positive, Russ, because there were quite a lot of positives.
Yeah, there are.
But I think that we need to delve into the frailties that, if we hadn't been playing Burnley on Saturday, we may not have got away with what we got away with. And I think that's the important point here, is that we've got some really tough games against some really tough opposition coming up. And I really want to sort of talk about us defensively, because at the moment we are a shambles. We are an accident waiting to happen. We got away with it Saturday. So I really want to focus on the positives of that result, because obviously, we hadn't won at Turf Moor for, almost 75 years. So to go up there and to finally get that monkey off our backs and get that win, that was huge. Obviously, to see the return of Anthony Robinson was very positive, especially with the 3 guys that are going to the AFCON Nations Cup. So to have him back and firing is a good thing. Another positive, Harry Wilson's goal scoring form is continuing, and that's a massive positive. Smith Rowe seems to have found his mojo finally after months and months and months of not being able to perform for whatever reason, and finally up to 13th and on 20 points with Forest and West Ham coming up. So there's a lot of positives to take from Saturday.
So I come up with these Cottage Talk talking points, and you literally destroy them before we even start the show, because you've named pretty much most of them, but we'll get through. That's interesting. Now, listen, what's interesting is that we will focus a lot on the positive, but what's great about doing the show with you, and I hope people that watch and listen to the show get this, we want to balance everything out, because again, it's not just all the positives. It's really just breaking down what we watched and being honest about it, being positive and negative whenever that is needed. And we're Fulham supporters. And what's interesting, Tony was talking to me while I was in Oklahoma. Well, no, not when I was in Oklahoma, actually talking to me just in general terms. We were talking about how he wants perfection, right? And I thought of Remember the Titans, because this is a famous movie here, and it was talking about perfection. I get that. You want to strive for it. You never get it, but you want to strive for that. So I understand where Tony comes from. But for me, like I said, there's a lot of positives. We'll talk about that, but we're going to talk about those frailties as well. That's why we do Cottage Talk, Tony. So let's get to it. Let's start with Cottage Talk talking points. I think where I really want to start, we will start with a positive, and I'll just share it this way. And our friend Chris is watching, so he'll appreciate this. Harry Wilson deserves a new contract. I think it's fair to say, and I actually said this on my match reaction show, that this summer I was actually not against them moving on from Harry Wilson going to Leeds United. I thought it would benefit both Leeds United and Fulham financially by doing that deal. And thankfully, I was wrong, because he's now maybe taken what was happening back then and running with it, and then playing with his country. He is in rare form. And what's interesting, I think maybe you even said this, Tony, what I find interesting about Wilson, the fact that he's starting regularly, maybe that's exactly what this guy needed to be where he is right now. Because I'm telling you right now, I think we are now seeing, we're going to talk about Smith Rowe too on a different level, but we are seeing a player that is now, I think, entering his prime. And he's with Fulham right now. So I think he still has several prime years left. So I'm going to go a complete 360 and hope that Fulham sign this guy. But he absolutely deserves a new contract with Fulham.
Do you know what, Russ? Confidence is everything in football. When a player is confident and feeling good, that can give you an extra 10, 15% in your game. And I think what Harry Wilson has done in the last 6 to 8 months is he's actually matured as a player. He's really matured as a player. And obviously, Silva is giving him an opportunity. So, and at the end of the day, Harry Wilson is letting his football do the talking. And what he's done is he's put himself into a very, very strong position in terms of, number one, getting that contract. The issue that I have, Russ, is if other big clubs come sniffing and, offer him a better deal with more money, is his head going to get turned? And is he going to be that player that actually, well, you know what, Fulham had every opportunity to get me signed and get me on board. They didn't. It's been stalling for months and months and months. And now that I'm in form, now that I'm kicking on, any of the top 6 sides could suddenly, put in an offer and suddenly you've got a problem. So Fulham need to get this tied down ASAP.
Okay, and that's an interesting way to look at this, because trying to figure out what Harry Wilson wants, and neither one of us know, but the one thing I think going for Fulham, even though that, Tony, let's be honest, they are now in a precarious situation because this is his contract's running out. So he controls everything. But if you're Harry Wilson and now you have figured things out, do you try to go to a top 6 club, or do you say, you know what, this is the right place for me? This is the right situation for me. Could it also be linked to what's going on with Marco Silva as well? Because maybe he doesn't want to sign because of the uncertainty with Silva. There's a lot to go on with this. But one, he deserves a contract. And two, if I'm him, I take my time on this. I don't want him to take his time on this, but I weigh my options. But I also got to factor in, am I in the right place?
Yeah, absolutely. And all very good points. And as I said, I think that at the moment, the form that Harry Wilson is in, he's let his football do the talking. He's got himself into position where now Marco Silva can't really, drop him and won't drop him. So as long as he continues to perform and as long as he continues to let his football do the talking, then, Harry Wilson is a very strong player for us. And the club really need to get that, tied down. But look, I think football, as you know, you never know which way it's going to go until it actually happens. And what I don't want is, Wilson then to sign this contract and suddenly, he takes his foot off the accelerator and thinks, well, now I've got my contract, now I can relax a little bit, because we need to see a hungry, rejuvenated Harry Wilson playing well every single week. And at the moment, he's absolutely delivering.
No, he absolutely is. I'm just going to continue to share some comments. When Harry Wilson got that pass, did anybody think that the ball was going to go anywhere else than the back of the net? And the answer is, of course it was going to the back of the net, Tony.
Yeah, well, we'll come on to that. But yeah, it was an absolutely sublime touch. And the minute, that touch made the goal, really. So, yeah, obviously no is the answer. But once he brought that down and put it in, Burnley's defending was absolutely abysmal, by the way. You think we've got problems defensively.
Oh, they got major problems.
They have got. And it's so weird because last season, their defense in the Championship was literally unpenetrable. It was literally unbelievable. So the difference is madness. But yeah, they've got massive problems defensively. So yeah, good luck to them.
Good luck to Scott Parker. That's his problem, not our problem, right,
Exactly.
Tony? We'll be talking about Scott Parker coming up in Cottage Talk Talking Points. But that's a good point. Listen, but I will say this, and we're going to talk about all of this, and I definitely want to talk about. We're gonna come on in just a bit to talk about the opening goal, and there are two ways to look at it. I'll just mention that yes, it's poor defending, but I also think it's very good planning by Fulham and the coaching staff and the players. But we'll talk about that in just a bit. All right, my friend, you've already talked a little bit about the return of Jedi. It was great to see him, right? So Jedi was rusty against Burnley, but it was great to see his return. We needed him. So in one sense, you could see the rustiness, you could see some of the errors, but again, I think it's understandable that you get some of these issues, Tony. He hasn't played in a long period of time, but I'm going to weigh on, it was just very important to have him involved. And the fact that they kept this kind of under wraps, I was under the assumption that he wouldn't be returning until after Christmas. So this was a little bit of a surprise. What did you make of Jedi?
Yeah, look, with Cess out, obviously, it was good timing. I don't think we can be too critical of his overall performance. I think he did a lot of good things, and I think he did a lot of bad things. But as you said, Russell, much expected given the fact that he hasn't played for, months and months and months. Very tough place to go to make your comeback, and to settle into the rhythm of the game and to get your fitness levels and your match legs going. So look, it was great to have him back. As I said, a lot of good things, a lot of bad things, but that's what you're going to get with Anthony Robinson. That, it's as simple as that. I expect him to, get a bit sharper as time goes on. But look, as I said, he had a big influence in us going forward. He also caused us a lot of problems defensively, which we'll come on to.
Yeah, we will.
But like I said, overall, great to have him back, and he will hopefully only get stronger and better as the games start to, click off.
Absolutely. And then, Tony, it's funny because, like I said, I keep referring back to this quick episode I did on Patreon. I think that will lead us to really discuss, once Jedi is really back playing to the level that we expect him to play, the argument will be, we're going to talk about it. Who's the better defender? Once Cess is back, is it Sessegnon? Is it Jedi? Now, we're not talking about overall player. We're talking about better defender as a left back. Who's the better defender? Because both of them have different traits as a left back. And what's going to fascinate me is to really analyze the two of them, because Cess, I truly believe, will end up playing further up the pitch. But we've talked about earlier that when he does return, I think it gives Marco a little bit of a conundrum at left back.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on what Marco Silva is thinking. I think in his mind, he obviously sees Robinson as his number one, left back. I think that's pretty clear. Because of Cess, because he's got the ability to play further up the pitch, he's a bit more adaptable. And for balance as well. And obviously with the three going to the AFCONs, it's a natural progression of just playing Cess slightly higher up the pitch and keeping Robinson, a left back. And actually they can interchange, in games, which I think it was also is another option to look at. So yeah, for me, I think it's win-win actually in all those situations. But I'll always go back to it. In my opinion, Sessegnon is a better defender than Anthony Robinson.
Okay. And like I said, that's something that we can always discuss. I enjoy discussing that. And I actually agree with you because, again, what's going to talk about the goals, there were certain things that we saw from Cess, and there's a goal, and from Jedi. Again, it's difficult to really read because you got to give the guy a chance to get back to the player that he was. He's just coming back. But some of the awareness, that I've seen when he was starting, I think I saw in this match. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And that also goes to, like I said, who's the better defender as a left back? And I would lean towards Sessegnon, but I think it's also a good problem to have. It really is good. You can't go wrong having too much talent out of position. We have a good amount, and that's what's good. Okay. Tony, let's move on. Remember, I mentioned we would be focusing on that first goal. So I want to talk about this because I've seen a lot of talk about this. I listened to a lot of commentary coming from Burnley, and they were killing the defense, which they should be, right? They should absolutely be killing it. But I'm going to look at this twofold. I want to give credit to the coaching staff and the players for the first goal because this was worked on. There's no question that they planned this. It's funny because I've seen commentary that this was an accident. I'm paraphrasing, but people not giving Fulham enough credit here. This to me was planned, was worked on. And when I watched it back, I've watched it back several times. I'm curious if you've had a chance to watch it a few times. You're going to see a couple things. One, you're going to see Kenny Tete. Kenny Tete has a lot to do with this, along with Calvin Bassey, setting what I would call picks, basketball picks, to set up Smith Rowe for a free run. Now, their defender should have gotten there because he had an opportunity. So we can blame, I think it's Hartman. You can blame him. But this was worked on. So I want to give a lot of credit to Marco, the coaching staff, and the players for executing this. This is a fantastic goal. It's not as easy as it looks. There's a lot that had to go right, and a lot went right, and something had to go wrong. That was the defending by Burnley. But I want to give a lot of credit to Fulham here.
And that's a great shout out, Russ. And I want to give a great shout out and credit to Burnley and Scott Parker for the woeful setup and defending that allowed us to go and score that goal. Because if Fulham had conceded the goal that Burnley conceded, I'd be absolutely tearing what's left of my hair out onto the pitch. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, look, actually we got that corner. It was great to see Anthony Robinson back getting up the pitch, and it was his poor cross that actually led to the corner, if you remember.
Yeah.
But look, Harry Wilson obviously, puts it into into an area.
Yep.
And if you don't defend those areas properly, and Burnley didn't, then you know what, you're going to get a chance. And we got a chance, but I think you have to give Emil Smith Rowe a lot of credit as well.
Absolutely.
His run was excellent, Russ. And again, the Burnley defender that was marking him absolutely should be ashamed of himself because he made absolutely no effort to go with Smith Rowe, almost just let him go, thinking, well, the ball's not going to get there. And that's the gamble you take sometimes when you don't pick your runner up. And credit to Smith Rowe, he won't score an easier goal all season, is the honest truth. So, you know what, it was a great moment, settled us down, and it was a great start for us to get on the front foot.
Absolutely. I have to share this from our friend Gary. He says, good evening, Russ and Santa. A massive win. We were okay going forward, but defensively very poor. Heard a rumor today that Silva has signed a new contract, announcement before force. I don't know. Again, might be a rumor. What's interesting about what Gary's sharing is that Silva had something very interesting to say in his presser today that maybe leads people to feel that way. I don't know if Gary's hearing something, but we shall see. We shall see. I kind of got a feeling when I was getting the comments from the presser that maybe he was on to something. I don't know. We shall see. Let's see. We got Suhail checks in. Afternoon, gents, on a plane heading back to Toronto. Love the Santa hat, Tony. Thought you would be better as the Grinch. Was a good way.
I couldn't get a Grinch hat, Suhail. If I could, I would have worn it. Trust me. Especially when we come on to the second part of this show.
Okay, very good. But Tony, listen, getting back to talking about the goal, and I'm glad that you focused also on Emil Smith Rowe's run, because we're going to talk about him as well. Again, it's becoming a theme. We have to talk about what he did in this match. But listen, if we're going to kill Silva on zonal marking and all that, we have to praise the coaching staff when they get it right here.
Yeah, 100%. Look, as I said, they've probably, they have worked on it. But if Burnley's defending's better, then we don't necessarily score that goal, Russ, is the truth. So look, as I said, you've got to put it into an area. They did. They attacked it. They did what they needed to do, and they took advantage of their poor defending. So, as I said, great goal for us. And as I said, it set us up to move forward into the game on the front foot and take the game to Burnley.
Absolutely. Absolutely, my friend. All right, let's move on. I told you we were going to talk about Emil Smith-Rowe. So let's talk about this because Emil Smith-Rowe continues to show why Fulham signed him last season. We've been waiting for this, and I've seen comments from this. Now you have a good amount of consistency. Maybe this goes to what we're talking about. Maybe this goes to what you've been shouting about for the longest time. Play the kid consistently, just like we're talking about Harry Wilson, and you will get the results. I got to tell you, I'm seeing a different Smith-Rowe now. Obviously, there was an error there that we can talk about as well because he almost caused potentially a goal against Fulham with a bad pass. But if you put that to the one negative, there are a lot more positives, Tony, coming from Emil Smith-Rowe. This is the player I wanted to see.
100%. Look, players are going to make mistakes. You know, they're only human, and every player, you know, at some point in the game makes a mistake. That no one's perfect. Look, what Smith-Rowe is at the moment, Russ, is he's hungry. He's got the bit between his teeth. He's hungry, and he's proving a point. And you know what? I'm absolutely delighted for him because it means that it's good news for Fulham. It's good news for Marco Silva. It's good news for the fans because what you're seeing now is the player that we paid £30 million from Arsenal for. You know, he's starting to show those qualities. And you know what? He's playing with bravery. Yeah, yes, he played a blind pass, you know, but you know what? You're going to get that. But I'm pleased to see him getting into those areas and wanting to get on the ball. And as I said, he's showing that hunger. And if he's hungry, it's only going to be positive for Fulham.
When I was watching the match from the hotel room that I was at, what I found interesting is that it seemed like he was all over the place in a positive way. Like he was, you know, same thing with Iwobi, but more to do with him. Do you like the fact that he is moving around so much, Tony?
Yeah, do you know what? I think Marco Silva has finally said to him, I don't necessarily want you doing too much defensively. I want you doing what you do best in the final third. And I think he's given him a little bit more of a license to work across the pitch. And that's why you're seeing him, you know, being a bit more influential and a bit more positive in those areas. And I think actually Silva seems to have taken the restraints off him and he seems a lot happier, Smith-Rowe, which is why, as I said to you, he now feels hungry. He feels that the shackles have been, you know, taken off him. He's feeling that maybe he doesn't have that responsibility necessarily so much defensively. And as I said, you know what? A happy Smith-Rowe and a fit Smith-Rowe and a positive Smith-Rowe is only good news for Fulham.
Totally agree, Tony. But here's something that I want to get into while we talk about Smith-Rowe, his ascendancy right now. Now we're starting to see. So now I'm going to ask you, what do you do with Josh King? Because now Josh King has been put a little bit on the back burner. He's now coming off the bench. This is now an issue that I have because I still want to see the two of them play together. Now, I've seen comments from the press saying, great by Jack Kelly, who does a great job as a journalist, sharing these comments and getting them from Marco, talking about the possibility of the two of them playing together. And again, I would have to go back the tweets, but even one of them talked about potentially what we saw over the summer, Smith-Rowe playing on the left as a left wing, and then you have Josh King playing that role. I know what you and I want. We want them both in the middle. I think there's an opportunity to make that happen with Iwobi going away to AFCON. I think there's a chance. My fear is that we won't see that and we will see the return of the double pivot. That's what I feel we're going to see. But I think maybe we could potentially see this happening because I don't want to see Josh King get left coming off the bench where I think we saw so much positive as him as starter. I want to see the two of them play together.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's the gamble and conundrum that Marco Silva has to deal with. Once the three go off to the AFCON, there's an opportunity for Marco Silva to look at it. I believe that you can play Smith-Rowe and Josh King together. I think it would be a very positive move. And I think it would, create a lot more quality and positivity for us in the final third. I think, Smith, it's great to see finally a midfielder scoring goals for Fulham, because over the last few years, our midfielders haven't chipped in with goals, haven't contributed. Emil Smith-Rowe is doing that. Josh King, I think, has sort of not lost his place so much to Smith Rowe, because I think Silva is just managing him.
Yeah.
But, King needs to, when he does play, and he has shown that he has shown those qualities, he does need to contribute for goals, because at the end of the day, your midfielders need to do that. And I think there is definitely an argument to play Berger, King and Smith Rowe together in that middle. And that's the, that's the gamble that Silva has to sort of weigh up in his mind.
Right.
Can he trust those two to go in there and get the job done, but also give us enough out of possession defensively to give us that little bit of protection? And I think that's what Silva's going to have to weigh up.
Oh, that's a good point, Tony. And the one other player I want to talk about before we go to my last Cottage Talk talking points. I know I didn't put this in my talking points, but I just want to get your thoughts on Chukwueze and what he has meant so far, because I saw a comment about Chukwueze. So I want to get your thoughts on just in general how he played and what he's given Fulham.
He's given us a new dimension, Russ. I mean, he's going to be a huge blow, huge miss, given what he's contributed. And do you know what? Kevin sitting there on Saturday, literally didn't get on the pitch, and I think that tells 1,000 stories in itself. But boy, has that kid got to step up now, because honestly, Chukwueze set a benchmark, centre level,
huge,
and Kevin now has to look at that and think, right, that's the level I have to hit, and that's what he has to bring. And there's a lot of pressure on that kid's shoulders now, because for what we paid for him so far, he hasn't shown that he's worth £3, let alone £30 million. So he's going to be a huge miss, Russell. Huge.
No, I know, but like you said, Tony, if I'm Kevin, I'm just thinking out loud. If I'm Kevin and I don't even get to play in this last match, and I know that I'm going to get my opportunity, and listen, we've got a match coming up in the Carabao Cup against Newcastle United, which is huge for Fulham. We'll just call it what it is. It's massive. He has a wonderful opportunity to shine here. But the benchmark, like you said, is now, if he's watching Chukwueze and what Chukwueze's doing, I hope he's thinking, I can do that too. Because I think he has the ability, the talent to do what we saw. But I just hope that he can execute that, because I see the ability, but I think sometimes he just approaches it in a different manner, Tony. Chukwueze's very direct. And as you could see, he can lay a wonderful pass like he did for the goal. I think that Kevin can do that as well, but I think that at times, again, we see all the tricks and stuff. Sometimes I would just wish, just make the pass. Just make the simple pass. Make the pass. Just drive at these players, because you have all the pace in the world. I think that, again, like Smith Rowe, like some other players that I've seen over the years, I think we just got to give the kid some time to play. And it might be a situation like this, Tony. You know how you said you want to see some of these players like Harry Wilson, like Smith Rowe, play consistently? Hopefully you'll see it from Kevin, and now we can really, truly judge him.
Yeah, absolutely. But, at the moment, Russ, the reality is, from what we've seen, is that the level's a little bit too much for him at the moment, from what we've seen. And listen, tomorrow, I expect Kevin to play. And you know what? He has to start delivering. We can't keep having, he's going to settle, give him time, blah, 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 blah. Fulham paid £30 million, nearly £40 million for him. Sorry.
They did. They paid more than Smith Rowe.
And so, unfortunately, with that price tag, there comes quite a big responsibility and an expectation. And at the moment, he is nowhere near it. And Silva has given him opportunities. Yep. He has given. It's not like he's just left him and hasn't given him chances. He's had chances, and he's had chances against teams in much lower divisions, Russ, as well.
Yeah.
And he hasn't delivered. He hasn't shown anything to suggest to me that, when Chukwueze came in, bang, straight in, delivered straight away, showed his qualities, showed that he's a world-class player.
Thank you for your comment, John.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's, unfortunately for Kevin now, that's the benchmark, and he has to step up to that. So, we do need to see it. We need to start, and he needs to start showing it. And, tomorrow would be a great opportunity for him to start.
Okay, my friend. Good stuff. All right. One final topic, and I think you're going to like this topic, Tony. And we're going to end this way with Cottage Talk talking points, okay? And I said this in my show that I put on Patreon. Burnley ensured the victory with his saves. They don't win that match without him. Dare I say they might lose it without him. This reminded me of some classic matches with Mark Schwarzer, Tony, where Schwarzer really saved Fulham. Now, we're going to talk about the defense, certainly when we break down this match and talk about the defending, because it certainly was poor at times. And I would say a good amount of it, right? But here's your last line of defense. He might have had some bad moments, but this is still a world-class goalkeeper, Tony. He saved Fulham here. There's a good amount, and again, we'll go through man of the match. And I think it's easy for many to say it's definitely Harry Wilson. I say, wait a minute. Could it be Burnley?
Well, he was head and shoulders my man of the match. And absolutely right, Russ. Without him, I mean, there's your world-class goalkeeper. And I've got to say this, Russ, all the Fulham fans out there that are saying this guy's washed up and Fulham need to replace him and all this nonsense, give your heads a wobble. He is a world-class goalkeeper and he showed it. Unfortunately, goalkeepers will make mistakes and sometimes they will be costly. But my God, he made 3 one-on-one saves on Saturday that ensured that Fulham came away with 3 points. And let me tell you, Russ, his performance on Saturday was outstanding. The 3 saves he made were outstanding. And without him, we get nothing out of that game on Saturday. Nothing, 0. So for me, his performance was top level. We are lucky to, I'll say it again, we are so lucky to have him. Fulham fans don't understand. We are so lucky to have him. And, God help us when he decides to retire, leave, or get snapped up or goes, because I'll tell you now, you won't get a better goalkeeper. I promise you. We will not get a better goalkeeper. We are lucky to have him. And you know what? They're right. Chris is right. Top 5, in my opinion, no question, top 5 Premier League goalkeeper.
Yeah, listen, and Chris is a supporter of Liverpool. He would know. He sees it all. So I trust, especially when someone like Chris says that, and it's not just us. So that's why I want to share that. Some really good comments. Let's say that's saving the first half when he dived.
Absolutely, Gary. Absolutely.
To his right, brilliant. And
you cannot underestimate how important those saves were. On Saturday, you just cannot underestimate his performance Saturday. They were absolute, and we'll go back to these goalkeepers, right? I know managers in the Premier League want their goalkeepers to play with their feet and be able to play out. No, goalkeepers are there to save shots and to pull things out of the air, to be a good shot stopper, to take crosses, good distribution with, kicking, throwing, and Leno gives you all of that, all of it. So, you know what? Top performance, and he won us the game Saturday.
Okay, very good. Tony, we have one more topic. I can't believe I almost forgot this one. This is something that we have to talk about, and then we'll break down the match. Here we go. You ready? Will we see Scott Parker managing Burnley later in the season at Craven Cottage? I have to ask the question. I got to tell you, I'm going to say it right now. Fulham supporters and Bournemouth supporters were right. I can give him the credit when he was a player for what he did, and also that he was our manager during a difficult period. But the football played underneath him was just horrible to watch, and it actually set up an opportunity for everything to change for Fulham by bringing in Marco Silva. So it was a blessing that he wanted to leave to go to Bournemouth. But we were proven right here. And I'll just say that we were proven right, but I don't think he's going to make it, Tony.
Look, in my opinion, I hope he is still manager of Burnley when he comes to Craven. I really do. I want him to. But look, I want to give Scott Parker a little bit of a bit of kudos.
Okay.
Scott Parker is a very good championship manager.
Yes, he is.
He knows the championship. He sets teams up well to play at that level. And he showed that last year with Burnley. He showed that, and full respect to him for that. And that's his level. And there's no shame in that, Russell, right? Yeah. He is a championship manager, like Frank Lampard, like all the other guys at the moment are doing really well down there with those teams. The Premier League is a completely different level. different level of player, different tactics, different setup, different pace, different physicality. And unfortunately, Scott Parker is getting found out, like he got found out at Fulham, like he got found out at Bournemouth. He's not at the level. So, yes, he's going to get found out, and he's getting found out.
Yeah.
And it's not rocket science. So, yeah, look, Burnley will make the decision in the next 2 or 3 games, probably, Russ. If they lose their next 3, he'll lose his job.
He's out. Right. But selfishly, I want him to stay in there because I want to see him return to Craven Cottage.
100%. So would I.
So for selfish reasons, I don't want him to get sacked. And so I'll just leave it at that. Okay. One final topic before we break down the match. We won't spend too much time on it, but I just want to get your thoughts on the starting 11. I got to tell you, I was relieved to see the starting 11 because I did not see the double pivot. And I thought it was a very strong lineup. Your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I mean, it was, I said, great to see Robinson back, obviously. And yeah, it made, absolute sense. I did think he might start Josh King over Smith Rowe, but obviously kept faith in Smith Rowe, which I was obviously very pleased about. So no issues with the starting 11 whatsoever.
Okay. All right. Good stuff. All right. Coming up next, Tony and I will break down the match, and we will end with man of the match. All right, Tony, let's get to it. Let's go to talking about the first half. And, like I said, I'm watching this in a hotel room in Norman, Oklahoma, and I'm nervous. And my wife basically went shopping because I don't think she wanted to be there watching me watch this. And, oh, by the way, I'll share a quick story, and I'm going to admit this, okay? Here's the quick story along with me watching the match that I'm sharing with everyone. So we get all the way to stoppage time to end the match. 6 minutes, right? After the first minute, I couldn't handle it anymore. I actually put my shoes on and left and went downstairs to the lobby. And my wife saw me like pacing. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle the last 5 minutes because I knew how important it was. I ended up watching it later, but regardless, it was just, it was hard, man. It was hard. That's my little story of me watching the match in Oklahoma. But I want to get your thoughts on the first half. Why don't we just jump all the way? We've already talked about the goal, but this is also a good way to start the match for Fulham.
Yeah, so obviously 9 minutes in, and to score that goal settles us down, keeps us on the front foot. And then obviously there was a big moment after we scored about 2 minutes later when Leno made that brilliant 1v1 save, and if you look at it, Iwobi loses the ball in midfield. And I want to talk about us defensively because we were absolutely abysmal defensively. Anderson and Bassey's position, where they were when Iwobi loses that ball, they're outside of the 18-yard box, right into the right-hand corner where Tete should be as a right back. You've got Anderson and then Bassey literally on the edge of the 18-yard box. They are so wide. So when the ball is then played behind Bassey, that then gives the forward the opportunity to cut in and get that shot off. And, Robinson is just ball watching. He's just completely watching. He's just not watching the danger and seeing that. So the guy's got a clear shot. And obviously Leno, you're relying on him, totally exposed, makes a brilliant save. And that's on 11 minutes, Russ. Yeah. So that keeps us 1-0 up at that point. And then obviously we get to the 21-minute mark when, Burnley equalise.
Well,
and
we're going to talk about that. You're right.
Yeah. So, Sanderberg, in my opinion, out of position. Just watching, not getting tight enough to the player. Anderson, again, far too wide. And what happens? Bassey and Robinson caught completely flat.
Yep.
Robinson's got to see the danger. He's more worried about the man on the outside, Foster, than picking up Ugachukwu, who's the guy that's obviously going between Bassey and Robinson. He makes the run. It's an easy through ball. Leno's exposed. It's a good finish, but a terrible, terrible goal to concede. Terrible.
No, it was. It's funny. I'm sharing this from Gary. It's funny. In a future episode, we're going to talk about Silva's coaching staff and have they lost something with Stuart Gray and also Bo Morte. I want to get into that. I'm glad that Gary mentioned this because I think that's something that we'll definitely talk about in a future episode because it's a topic that we should be talking about. So that was terrible. So we get the equalizer. It's now 1-1, Tony, and I'm furious at this point because I'm thinking there's no way that they should be in this match. But to your credit, you already talked about they had that opportunity that thankfully Bern Leno saves before this. So they had their spell. And now let's go on, and we're going to talk about Bassi gives Fulham the lead. But again, it starts off of a corner. Again, we're talking about set pieces. These are positives that we now have. Again, this isn't directly off of the corner. But the action comes from it that is from the corner. So it starts with the corner, but next thing you know, you get the ball at the feet of Harry Wilson, and just great that it literally lands at the perfect spot, Tony, that Calvin Bassey puts it in the back of the net. Let's talk about the goal that gives Fulham the lead 2-1.
Yeah, well, initially the ball falls out to Anthony Robinson. And
it does.
He puts in a lovely, dink ball to Harry Wilson, and obviously the sublime touch that Wilson takes there actually creates the opportunity because. A lot of players in that situation normally panic and then they sort of snatch at the ball and it normally just, goes inside. But he showed great composure. And then obviously, he's put in a delightful ball. But again, the Burnley defending, Russ, there was absolutely atrocious. There were 5 Burnley defenders in the 6-yard box and Calvin Bassey has managed to find that little space to head the ball in. So they will be incredibly disappointed having conceded that goal. But obviously from our point of view, great moment because it gave us the opportunity to get back in front.
Okay, very good there, Tony. Okay, good stuff. All right, so give me your thoughts. What were you thinking about it at halftime?
So just before then, obviously, I want to talk about Joachim Andersen, who I think we've got to start thinking about replacing this fella because he is causing us so many problems defensively. So on 37 minutes, Russ, he gets booked. Why does he get booked? Because once again, he's caught flat-footed and the player, starts to drive at him. He's got Broja, I think it was Broja, and he's got no option but to bring him down because he's going to get caught for pace. And so, he has to take the booking. Yep. And then from that resulting free kick, Burnley nearly go and equalise. And once again, Bert Leno makes an absolutely brilliant save. Andersen and Bassey once again caught flat-footed.
Okay.
Yep. And they should have scored. Leno makes a brilliant save. And then we hit them on the counter and Harry Wilson goes clean through and almost should have scored, but obviously couldn't get his feet sorted out. So, we could have been 2-2 at half-time, could have been 3-1 at half-time, but we go in at 2-1.
I'm glad that you talked about the opportunity from Harry Wilson. I forgot to mention that. So there was a possibility, like you said, for it to be very different, but no, very good stuff there, Tony. All right, let's transition. Let's talk about the second half. And, again, what's interesting here is that it's 2-1, but I could feel that there were going to be more goals in it, and that's exactly what you saw. So let's jump ahead, and let's now go to Fulham making it 3-1. With Harry Wilson. Now, what's great about this is a great transition. It involves players that we've already talked about on the show, Smith Rowe, Chukwueze with a phenomenal pass. And again, if you watch it back, you're going to see the two of them. I'm talking about Harry Wilson and Chukwueze looking at each other. So they were in sync. It goes to Harry Wilson, and Tony, I'll let you do the rest.
Just before the goal, Russ, we had that moment where Smith Rowe made that poor pass.
Oh, that's right. I forgot to talk about that.
And Leno made another brilliant save, 1v1. And I think that was the sort of the change in, because that was a huge moment for Fulham. Because if Burnley score from that, they go 2-2, we don't know how the game could have gone. So that save actually then transitions us into that Smith Rowe moment where, he plays in Chukwueze. Chukwueze puts that ball across beautifully for Wilson. And then obviously, Wilson's touch. And when he's in that position, you always back him to score. And obviously, he's found the angle and he's placed it brilliantly. And 3-1 and you're in heaven thinking, wow, we're actually, we could pull this off. We could actually get the result finally.
Yeah, and honestly, at 3-1, I'm still not feeling comfortable, Tony. I really am not. And to be honest with you, before we talk about the Burnley goal to make it 3-2, I want to talk about the opportunity because Fulham was still creating opportunities, and you have the opportunity that goes to Jedi, right? And I don't think Jedi's ever scored a goal for Fulham. Here's a perfect opportunity, and he just skies it. Tony, what did you make of this?
Yeah, it just lacked a little bit of composure, Russ. I think he got a bit of a nosebleed. He saw the headlines, he saw the lights, and he just thrashed at the ball. And you know what? Yeah, it was one of those. But look, on another day, he hits that, and sometimes it hits the back of the net. So it was just one, it was just one of those moments.
Okay, all right. So we're at 3-1, and I'm feeling pretty good, but I'm also, again, it's a dangerous lead, 3-1. We, a 2-goal lead. We all know that if they score a goal, then it can become a very scary, squeaky bum time, as you guys would say, right? And that's what it turned out to be. So let's talk about their goal. Now, I've watched this back several times. I want to get your analysis of what happened here, because there are several defenders in the area. The fullback that scored the goal was by himself, and I think the closest defender was Jedi. But I think he was trying to go for the player in front of him, along with, I think it was Anderson. I'm not exactly sure. This is a mess, Tony. What did you make of Burnley's second goal?
It came at a dangerous time because obviously, you got 4 minutes left plus injury time. Fulham just need to see the game out. Once again, defensively.
Thank you for the correction. Sorry, I didn't.
And I want to come back to Hammy Yen's comments actually about Anderson, and I want to come back to that.
Sure, we can go back to that. Yeah.
But, obviously, again, poor defending from Anderson, Robertson, and Bassey. Look, Bassey's made a genuine attempt to win the ball. Unfortunately, he hasn't got over the ball enough, and it's flicked off his head and fallen to the lad at the far post. And to be fair to him, he's taken a good touch, and it's a decent finish. But Fulham, then it suddenly, I think someone mentioned it earlier, squeaky bum time. Because you're thinking, here we go. This is going to be, a great opportunity for Fulham to throw this away again, having been, in complete control. So, look, at the end of the day, thankfully, we did manage to shore it up and see it out. Yeah. But as I said to you right at the beginning, Russ, we have to stop conceding these poor goals because against better opposition and against better sides, we won't get away with it.
Yeah. Okay. I want to share this comment, and then we'll go back to some of the Hammy End comments in just a second. Definitely want you to answer that, Tony. But I forgot to mention Bassey's run, and it was a incredible run. But again, that wasn't great either.
Well, Bassey's.
Yeah.
Listen, the guy's made a flipping 80-yard run from the back. He was probably absolutely shattered by the time he got to the goal. So listen, again, on another day it could have gone in. It didn't. But you know what? Bassey's got that in him, hasn't he? He's got that ability to be able to break out of defence, get forward, cause problems. But ultimately, as long as it doesn't cost us on the counter or transition, I'm all for it. But I'd prefer him just to sit at the back and defend. That's what he's in the team to do, is defend. Sure. So, but look, at the end of the day, as I say, we got the result. And, but you can't forget these moments because, as I said, against better sides, they will punish us.
Okay, very good. And by the way, this isn't Dan, it's Chloe. Chloe, thank you so much for commenting. So you are obviously someone that writes a lot on hammyend.com. I enjoy when you write, so I just want to mention that. But let's get back and let's let Tony answer your comments here. So let's see. So here we go. Before we finish up here, it says, you mean the Anderson who's revived Denmark's fortunes to be on the brink of qualification, a bloke who's integral the way in which Silva plays. So
look, Chloe makes a good point about that. Obviously, Anderson is a different player when he plays for Denmark. He's given different instructions, got a different manager. They play a very different way. I'm talking about Anderson at Fulham as a centre half, his qualities as a defender, and what he brings defensively. And ultimately, at the moment, Fulham are still conceding too many goals from a defensive point of view. Right. As a collective, that's not good enough. and his performances haven't been good enough defensively. He's getting found out, and he needs to improve in those areas. And that comes with, apparently he's a leader. Do I see those leadership qualities for us necessary? Not all the time, no. Especially when you look at our shape, when you look at the 2 goals that we conceded and look at where they were positionally, he's not in the right place. He's not set correctly, and he is getting found out. So I think that ultimately there is a collective responsibility between both centre halves. Anderson and Bassey are both responsible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, a lot of the issues are coming from Anderson's side, and he needs to make sure that he improves in those areas. And he's not the same player that plays for Denmark. He's playing with different players. So we did see it against Tottenham, but it's consistency, Chloe. He's got to be consistent. And I don't think we're getting enough consistency from him at the moment.
Okay.
And it will be interesting to see what happens when Bassey's gone.
Yeah.
If Silva puts Diop in there or Cuenca in there, let's see what happens. We might see a completely different Anderson. Okay.
So the smooth has to chime in. That's Suhail. So he says, what goal were Anderson fault versus Burnley? Both were Bassey's fault.
They were a collective. I think you need to watch the game back and just pause it at the moment and watch where they are positionally. Watch Anderson's position, watch Bassey's position. They are not in the right position defensively when we're out of position with the ball. So, you can go back to it and look at it. It's easy to say, Bassey was at fault, because at the end, when the ball's played, it's coming from the fact that Bassey's, been basically highlighted as the person that's not in the right position. But, if they were 10 yards more to the right-hand side and shuffled over a little bit and weren't having been drawn out of position, it's very difficult to show, because I haven't got a tactics board to show you or to show the positions. But if you watch it and you pause it, you will see quite clearly that they are, as a back 4, they're not in the right position. And Tete, I don't even know where he was at the time. But yeah, as I said, it's not blaming anyone as such. It's, as I say, collectively, it's not good enough. But Anderson is getting shown up in those positions because he's getting drawn out.
Okay. So we're going to have an opportunity to see how this all looks, Tony, where Calvin Bassey going. And I'm assuming Anderson obviously will still be there. I know you're making the argument that maybe we can see Diop, or maybe even Diop with Anderson, but I think it's going to be Cuenca. Who takes that place? I say it's going to be Cuenca, the left side.
I would like it to be Cuenca, because I think he's technically very good. He's got a good football brain. And I think he showed when he played against Arsenal that he does have the qualities. And I think he's one of those players that hasn't really been given a fair crack at the whip, because obviously Silva backs Anderson and Bassey, and that's fair enough. That's his prerogative. But yeah, I would like it to be Cuenca, but don't be surprised if he goes with Diop.
Okay, very good there, Tony. All right. Good stuff. And listen, thank you everyone for commenting. Chloe, thank you for all of your comments, and please do come back again. We definitely want your commentary. It was actually a good debate, and I'm glad that you shared your thoughts on that. Okay, Tony, to end this episode, well, before we end the episode, we'll go to the man of the match. I want to get your thoughts on how the match ended. So after the goal, what did you make of Fulham's play to see the match out?
Yeah, they did what they had to do. I think Silva made the changes that were necessary to get a bit of fresh legs on there to make sure we kept our shape, so see it out. And look, ultimately, as I said, to go to Burnley and get a result for the first time in 75 years, almost 75 years, at the end of the day, that's the positive that you got to take from it.
Okay. And Chloe, I will answer your question. Am I Silva out? The answer is I still am, because of I want Fulham to have a manager that is going to take them to the next level, and I think he's taken Fulham as far as he can. So I'm not afraid to answer that. I've said it before. I do want him to be Fulham's manager to the end of the season, and I want the sides to move on. So let me clarify that I want him to be the Fulham manager to the end of the season, and then I want the sides to just mutually part. That's what I want. Tony, where are you on that?
Of course, I want him to stay, Russ, obviously. But ultimately, I want him to commit to Fulham.
Okay.
But also, he's got to improve from a managerial and coaching point
Well,
of
if he
view.
did that, then I would want him to
He's got to
stay.
improve us defensively, because
Yep.
we're still not good enough. If we've got any aspirations of doing anything in this league or getting into Europe again, ever, he has to sort us out defensively. Simple as that.
Okay. And again, I appreciate all the comments. And yes, I did say that, but I want to give a little bit more information on why I would want them to part ways, is because unless he is willing to analyze the job that he does and make adjustments during the match and have a quote plan B, if he's willing to do all that and change things up and self-evaluate, I'm all in on bringing Marco Silva back. I've not seen evidence that he's done that. That's my little thing, Chloe. That's how I feel. I want a manager that is willing to make changes during the match. He might have a great game plan, but for me, if someone shows you something different, you should be able to adjust to it. And Marco Silva always seems to just go with his initial plan. So that's just my thing. That's the reason why I want the sides to part. But if he's willing to work on and evolve as a manager, I'm all for him staying, if that answers the question. Okay, enough. Good stuff, though. Let's end with man of the match. If you're watching live, feel free to share who was your man of the match. Tony, who's your man of the match?
Yeah, Colm said it there. Yeah, Burton Leno for me. We don't win the game without him. As simple as that. His performance was outstanding. Kept us in the game. Pulled off the big saves when we needed him to. And all day long.
Okay, let's see. So Chris says, as much as I want to give man of the match to the great Harry Wilson, I shall cede to Coach Tony and go for Burnley Leno, a top goalkeeper, a massive difference. I'm going to go with you, Tony. I could go with Harry Wilson. I thought about that too, but I don't think Fulham win the match, and I think we agree without Burnley Leno's save. So I'm going with Burnley Leno. Okay, very good. Great show, Tony. Fantastic show. I want to thank everyone who has watched live and has also listened to the show. I appreciate all of that. Tony, before we go, final thoughts.
Yeah, look, I said it's a great win, great 3 points. Now we're going to see what sort of backbone this football club has got, what these players have got. We lose the 3 players to AFCON, obviously. Nottingham Forest are on a high. West Ham will still be difficult. Let's see what we're about in these next 2 games. Okay,
very good. And Colby, just to end on Smith Rowe, I'm all about Smith Rowe, and if you've watched or listened to the show, you know that I want Smith Rowe to come good, and I think he has. So I'm all about Smith Rowe. So there you go on that. And to end the show, she actually gives us cheers, guys. And no, listen, that's what we're about, Chloe. Please come back again. Maybe if you want to join us sometime on Cottage Talk, I'd happy to have you actually on the show as well. We want different opinions, so I appreciate
Chloe,
it.
just so you know, my badges are UEFA B. I didn't take my pro license because it was a waste of time, but there you go.
Oh, okay. So she's like inviting me on the green pole. Yeah, no, I can do that too. Great stuff. All right. Great show as always, but it is time to wrap it up. For Tony Gold, I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching, listening to Cottage Talk, part of the Talk Sport Fan Network.